Is the screen visible?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, fine. Let me minimize this. श्रीवत्सवंशकलशोदधिकौस्तुभस्य श्रीवासराघवगुरोस्तनयं ततश्च विद्या अवाप्य विबुधोत्तमतां दधानं कुर्वे सदा हृदि गुरुं करुणाकराख्यम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि. In the previous class, we saw a little about the greatness of the first three Alvars. Then we saw in detail about a particular incident during the lifetime of the fourth Alvar, that is Tirumalizai Alvar. We saw about what happened in his life and about an example shown to him by Pei Alvar with a plant to which he gave water, but the plant was upside down and everything we saw. And we saw the significance of the example. The significance was that the chances of water reaching the plant would be more if the plant is properly there with the root under fertile soil and the shoot above it, and water is poured in such a way that it reaches the roots. So in the same way, the best possible way to attain moksha is to perform Sharanagati to Sriman Narayana. That is what we saw. Then a few questions came. For that reason, we are going to discuss about the concept of moksha as per different faiths. Now we are going to start with faiths from outside the Indian subcontinent, but we will come to the Indian faiths as well. Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. No, there are lots of faiths that have their origins in the Indian subcontinent as well. And many of them, some of them, like for example, Sikhism is somewhat recent, right? It came only around 1,000 years ago. But there are some faiths which have been much older. Oh, there is Sankhya, there is Vaisheshika, there is Nayayika, that is Nyaya school, which is somewhat close to Vaisheshika. Then there are other schools in this manner. There is Charvaka. So there are numerous ancient Indian schools as well. Now I'm not really sure how much I would be able to cover in today's class, but we will try to cover this fully because it has been asked once. So there were two things. One was about the concept of moksha. That was one question. The second question, rather it was a statement that was made and a question added was, is this okay to make such a statement? Is the understanding correct? That statement was about the solution and the way forward, given that there are so many differences and so on. So we will look at this part first, that is about moksha as per different faiths. Then we would go there because that second part is more towards the practical aspect. It is more like the solution. And the problem statement is something that we get here. So the problem statement is coming in the concept. We will look at the concepts. We will look at why certain concepts do not seem very much acceptable to us and why some are closer, why some are, or how some are sharing certain aspects. And then we will go to the concept of so not the concept, the solution, given that there are so many different things. How should we as Sanatanis approach the subject of moksha, not in terms of academia, but in terms of life goal, the purpose of life, ultimate purpose of existence in that sense. So, firstly, I do hope all of you are aware that even in a language like Sanskrit, there are multiple words used for moksha. Moksha itself is one word. There is a word nirvana, there is a word kaivalya, there is a word swarga or even apavarga, and there is a word mukti. Sometimes these words are used interchangeably inside the same school of thought. Sometimes they are used in a slightly different context. For example, the word swarga is sometimes used to refer to moksha. At some other times, depending on the context, it might refer to Indra Loka. For example, in Mahabharata, if it says Arjuna went to Swarga and came back, there we take Swarga to be Indra Loka. But in the same Mahabharata, there are places where Swarga is called the ultimate region, the supreme state of existence, and so on. There we take it as a moksha. Swarga there refers to that loka in which the beings are having moksha sthiti. So these words should be taken with some level of carefulness, with some caution, because it is not as though each one has its own meaning, and or that all of them always mean the same thing. They don't always mean the same thing. They don't always mean something different either. So there are many overlaps and differences here and there. A Vishishtadvaiti, you might see us saying that Kaivalya is not the supreme state. You might also see us citing scripture where Kaivalya is called the supreme state, and we will say Kaivalya is the supreme state. How are we to understand this? So these words, their meanings change depending on the context. Very technically, if you look at these words, like for example, Kaivalya, it is Kevalasya Bhava. Kevala means what? Something that is alone, only that, nothing else. That kind of, but only what? In that aspect, different schools will have different meanings for Kaivalya. What about the word nirvana that is so frequently used in, let us say, Buddhism? It is used in our scriptures as well. In Buddhism, there are different schools, a number of different schools. So, as far as I am aware, there are at least 60 different schools inside Buddhism. Like Sanatana Dharma, they are also a very old, very ancient faith, and they also have many, many branches. There are 60, at least 60 different schools of thought within Buddhism. At least I say, I believe there are many more, because Swami Vedanta Deshika has already mentioned that there are 44 schools, and he mentioned this 7 to 8 centuries ago, 7 centuries ago. So if 7 centuries ago there were 44 schools, today there could be many, many more. I'm not that educated, but we don't have to really go into the nitty-gritties and find out the exact definition of moksha inside each and every one of them. We just need to know that these are some of the words used for it. And we will look at some major schools of thought, especially those that existed in ancient times. If we really go ahead and talk about the various schools that claim to follow Hinduism, we would see that in the last 1 century alone, there are 100 new schools that have been created, which never existed before, which did not have any parampara, but which have come into existence, and which each of which is having its own definition of moksha. We are not going to get into that. It is not necessary for us. Why? Because we believe in Sanatana Dharma. We believe in something eternal. If we cannot find something eternal, we will at least try to find something as ancient as possible. Because in our context, whatever is ancient is believed to be more authentic. So let us move on. Now there is Christianity. In Christianity, there is Orthodox Christianity, there is Catholic Christianity, there is Protestant Christianity. So even Christianity has its own different schools. Even Islam has lots of schools and warring factions. So that is all well known. But one thing that is common in the Abrahamic faiths, when you say Abrahamic faith, it means what? Christianity, Islam, Judaism. So there is a state of being in heaven or hell after our current lives itself. Now, this itself part, we will see an exceptional case very soon. But the point here is that there is no concept of reincarnation, rebirth, that punarapi jananam part that we have. It is not there in their faiths. According to the Bible, now the Bible is very clear. It says, if you really want to attain heaven, you should avoid sin. What is sin? That is again explained in the Christian scripture. What are sins and what are the greatest sins? They are told in the Bible. Then you pray to Jesus Christ, and it is through him that you attain heaven. Therefore, if you reject Jesus Christ, you will not attain heaven. Now, this much is basic. And of course, when I say heaven here, oh, isn't heaven different from the state of moksha? No, their equivalent of the state of moksha is heaven itself. In our culture, we have heaven, which is Indraloka, that is at a state much lower than the state of moksha. But there, they don't have such a state that is an equivalent of our heaven, which is temporary. Indraloka is temporary. Indra's possession is also temporary. Indra's life is also temporary. Oh, but they drank Amrita, they are supposed to be immortal. No, they are not immortal. Amrita only gives them the life of youngsters, that is, they live as though they are 25 years old, exact 25, not any other number, for a very, very, very long period of time. Such a long period of time that we believe, for us human beings, it appears as though they are immortal. But there is a time when there would be pralaya, even in their lokas. At that time, when there is pralaya, Indra's life will also come to an end. The other devas, how many ever of them have had Amrita, their lives will also come to an end. This should be known to us. But anyway, so Indraloka Vasa, as per Sanatana Dharma, is obviously going to be for a lesser amount of time than Indra's own lifetime. We could understand it that way. But more importantly, let us look at the state. So the equivalent, therefore, to their heaven is not our Indraloka. The equivalent for our moksha is what they call as heaven in their religion. About hell, we will see much later. Right now, we are focused on the best possible state of existence that needs to be achieved, that is seen as the purpose of life and so on. That is what we are looking at right now. So the Bible is very clear that you need Jesus Christ. Now, Orthodox Christianity says heaven has many levels depending on what kind of Christian you are, how much of faith you have, how good you have been. There might be some bheda, some difference in the state of existence. And then there is a description of what that heaven is. What will you find when you get moksha? If you are a pure Christian, what will you find? If you are a pure Orthodox Christian, according to Orthodox Christianity, you would see a place of light, brightness. Light and brightness are always associated with some kind of superior thing, right? Darkness is associated with evil, light is associated with good knowledge and so on. You would find a place of green pasture. Why? Because that means that you would have plentiful resources for you. You would find a place of repose. It wouldn't be a place where you get tensed. It wouldn't be a place where you have to toil all day and not have any happiness coming. And in such a place, there would be no sickness, no sorrow, and no sighing. So there would be no sickness, there would be no sorrow, there would be nothing to regret. That kind of a place. It kind of reminds us of Swarga. Also kind of reminds us of the Saguna Moksha Sthiti, where a description of Vaikuntha is given. Of course, when we say Vaikuntha or Kailasha, we don't immediately say green pasture. We don't say immediately that it is a place where Atma takes rest or anything. We don't really say that. Those kinds of words are always questionable. But it does say here that there is no sickness, no sorrow. So, Orthodox Christians have realized that if there is an ultimate state of existence, it has to be permanent and it should be permanently free of sickness and sorrow and so on. If we look at, okay, the title of this slide is a little misleading because Catholicism, Protestants, and Jehovah's Witnesses have been mentioned here. Now, Roman Catholics, according to them, it is indeed the ultimate state, the state of being in heaven. That attainment of heaven implies the fulfillment of the deepest human longings. So your deepest desires would get fulfilled there. This is a statement which can immediately be questioned by us. We could ask, what if these deepest longings are not righteous in nature? This is a question that is more often asked to Islam, but I'm just pointing it out here. Secondly, you would have supreme definitive happiness. So here they talk not about the absence of sadness, but they talk about supreme happiness. And they say that all your deepest desires would get fulfilled. Why? Because when you call something as a deep desire, it is something that is not yet fulfilled. If it has already been fulfilled, it wouldn't be a deep desire. So the deepest, even your deepest desires will be fulfilled there. That is what Roman Catholicism says. Now, as a Purva Pakshi, we could ask that is it really okay for us who are imperfect to have longings which are always fulfilled? Our dharmic longings should be fulfilled. Our adharmic longings should not be fulfilled. Correct? If I have a very deep desire to butcher every human on earth, is it okay to let it happen? No, obviously not. It means I'm a psycho. It means I should be punished for even the thought. So there is a difference. So we should look at these things. But why are we looking at all of these? The point here is that many people are under the impression that what is said in all holy books is one and the same. All holy books teach only to be good. All holy books lead only to the same ultimate result. No, that is not so. It is possible that at some point of time, they were all very close to each other, the people of all the different countries of the world. But if we go by the fundamental scriptures that are followed and by the heads of their cultures as acknowledged by the people, we do not see that kind of closeness or oneness. We see a considerable level of difference. And this difference exists to such an extent that we cannot say this is also possible, that is also possible. We cannot say that. We cannot say that I can get a Christian heaven and also an Islamic heaven. No, that is not. Christian heaven is possible only if you believe Jesus Christ to be supreme. Whereas Islamic heaven is possible only if you believe Jesus Christ to be a prophet sent by Allah, and if you believe that Allah alone is the supreme with nobody else being the supreme. Therefore, you cannot have both. What if a person says, okay, but maybe I follow just one of them? Whether I follow only Christianity, I shouldn't follow both at the same time, right? What if I follow only this or only that? In both the cases, I should still get the ultimate state of being. The answer is still no. I will come to the reason why after explaining Islam as well. Now, among Protestant Christians, there are many different views on moksha. So some say that it may be achieved immediately after the current life. Some say that it would happen after the end of earth itself. There are a number of differences among what they say. Then there are these popular people who are called Jehovah's Witnesses. They believe that only 144,000 chosen faithful followers will be resurrected after death and allowed to enter heaven and rule over the mankind that is still on earth, along with Jesus Christ, who would still be their Lord. So, this is the belief of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is using a number that is extremely small. If you see 144,000, what do you think is the current population of Earth? We have billions of people. We have over 8 billion people on Earth, right? How many lakhs make 10 lakhs make a million, 1,000 millions make a billion. So 10,000 lakhs would make 1 billion, and we have like 8 billion. So you can imagine the percentage of people. And remember that that is the population of today's world. Those who are living today it is 8 billion. Maybe 50 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago, the population was, let us say, 3 billion. And 100 years ago, none of us existed. You might argue that our Atma existed in other bodies, but their faith does not say so. So according to their faith, 100 years ago, totally different people lived. So today's population plus the population from 100 years ago, plus the population from 100 years before that, plus the population from 100 years before that. Keep adding all of that, you will arrive at a very huge number. From that very huge number, plus the number that would come by adding the future days also, 100 years from today, 200 years from today, and so on. You take the complete number from all of those billions and billions of people, only 144,000 would ever achieve the supreme state of being. This is what is being believed. Now, this is again, it might sound very absurd to us, but they say so because they believe so. Their records say so. And such a question, such a belief cannot really be logically countered. You cannot say, oh, it is not logical. No, it might not sound sensible. There's a difference between being logical and being believable or being acceptable. How is this fair, if you ask? That is a different question from asking how is this logical? Because for such a belief, it is not necessary that such a belief is illogical. Such beliefs come out of records that are written and maintained, or somebody would have said something which has been recorded and they are believing in it. So if you think there is something illogical, oh, I don't think it is very logical out of billions and billions of people. So there is a difference between saying it is unfair and it is illogical. If we say it is illogical, it would be a much difficult way to argue for us, because this does not stem out of a logical reasoning, and it does not require a logical reasoning to defend or even counter it. So if you try countering it with logic, it might easily be argued that the majority of the world is sinful. As the majority of the world is sinful, the percentage of people who get salvation would be very less. They would very simply speak that way and move on. So it is not really so easy to logically counter this particular number. And I'm just pointing it out. Now, when you look at Islam, right? Islam, they say there are 7 heavens. You could also call it as heaven with 7 levels of it. Some Muslims say there are 7. Some people say that the 7 there is an upalakshana. It actually refers to many heavens. We are not there to debate with them and decide how many heavens they have. That is for them to decide. The supreme Jannah or Jannat, as we hear many Muslims calling it in India, it is a state above all. Now, this word Jannah, it is sometimes interchangeably used with these heavens as well. Here, people would have, that is, people, when we say people, then here we will have to differentiate between men and women. What about those who are neither men nor women? I am not aware of what is said about them. But for men, it is said that they would have whatever they wish for forever. They would have whatever they wish for forever. Women would get to be with their husbands. They will get whatever wishes their men want. If there is a part for the woman there, they would get that. If the woman has her own wish, as long as it does not conflict with her husband's wish and it does not conflict with Allah's wish, then she will get that as well. That means a slightly lower position for women, even in the supreme state of existence. On top of that, is it really slightly? That is where the more popular point about the Huris comes into place. Sometimes it is just called Hur, right? They write it as HWR. They are called as untouched women. Each man would get 72 untouched women who would give him pleasure. This is also said. What would the woman get? Would the woman also get? I have heard feminists ask in this manner. But the fundamental question should not be why does man get and why woman does not get. The question should be why should a man even get this? This is something that need not be given to any man. So the our paksha here would be, our argument here would be that we need not necessarily get or derive happiness from things that give us happiness. Here in this mortal world, some things give us happiness, some things give us sadness. As a matter of fact, things would give us happiness only as long as other things give us sadness. This happiness, sadness, it is a dvandva. It exists together. It is a dual. It is like two sides of a coin. If you have a coin, it will have two sides. You will have happiness, you will have sadness. So if something gives me happiness, something else will give me sadness. That is how life is here. So for something to give me happiness, it should also have the ability to give me sadness. But in their supreme state of existence, as declared by their scriptures, they are saying that there is a cause for happiness. They wish for something, they attain it, therefore they are happy. Each man gets so many women, the women be with him and give him physical happiness. What does that mean? That means that even in the supreme state, he has to wait for certain experiences to get happiness, which would again disappear, which is why these things would once again be with him and once again give him happiness. That is a very, very weird and twisted way of defining things, because if even in the supreme state, you need certain events to happen to trigger your happiness, it means you are not really happy there naturally. If you say, no, he is already happy, but he also experiences these things, then why should he experience these things? All of these things are useless to him. Why should you say that there would be 72 huri for each man? That kind of question could also be asked. So for us, from our perspective, based on our understanding of their explanation of the supreme state of existence, we see that it is not something that is so acceptable to us. If they see our side, it is not just moksha that they are going to disagree with. They are going to disagree with literally anything and everything that we say. We say Murti Puja, they will disagree. We will say Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, they will disagree. We say there is Swarga that is ruled by Indra, and Indra also gets Shapa and so on. They will disagree. They don't believe in any of those concepts. So that is there. We say Avatara, they will disagree. So these kinds of disagreements are always going to be there. But maybe I should point out something that Sai Deepak pointed out very beautifully, that while there is nothing wrong in disagreeing and in saying that this is something that we are not comfortable with, we should do so no matter what faith or what level of faith we have. I might have complete faith in Hinduism and zero faith in Islam. Such a state of mind is permitted completely by the Constitution of India. But at the same time, if we speak in a manner, if we speak in a manner that openly insults another religion, then they may invoke the Constitution to declare or inflict punishment upon us. Our Constitution has been written in such a way, and based on statistics, we may infer that most of the time the Constitution has been invoked in this manner against Hindus. That is a sad thing, but it has been invoked maybe because Hindus do not know the Constitution, maybe because sometimes the people who are supposed to be representatives of the law, be it the judiciary or be it the police, the local police or whatever, maybe they are not supportive enough, or maybe there is some other issue, there are plenty of cases coming every day. But we have statistical proof, and therefore we should exercise caution. So this is a very important thing, because at some point of time difference develops into hatred. They see wrong things happening, or they see things that are declared as absolutely horrid by scriptures. Scriptures say if somebody kills a cow, there is no greater sin that can be committed. Our scriptures say that. In their scripture, it says it doesn't. I don't care. All of these animals have been created only for you. They may freely do it. They will think it is not a sin. We will think, what is this? Cow is like our mother. He is killing my mother. How can I stay calm? But if we do not exercise caution in our thoughts, words, and actions, then we should be ready for the results that may not really be so sweet. This is something that was said by Sai Deepak, and it is a very important thing that I wanted to point out, although it is out of context. Now, before going to the ancient schools of Buddhism, let us look at a little more. Okay, we said that heaven is described as the ultimate end and fulfillment of the deepest human longings, right? It is somewhat similar in Catholicism with when you compare it with Islam. Your deepest longings get fulfilled, right? Men will have whatever they wish for forever. Is there a statement that says that men would wish only for good things? I don't know. I have not come across such a statement in Islam. But it is a fundamental question that is often asked from our side to their side. And we ask it because of a valid reason. We ask it because if there is indeed an absolute state of existence, and that state has sagunatva, that is, that state has attributes, then all of those attributes should not just be eternal, they should also be auspicious. So if it has me, I should be auspicious because I am also an attribute. If I get something, that something should also be auspicious. If I get some thought, that thought should be auspicious. If I desire for something, the desire should be auspicious. If I attain something, because I will attain whatever I wish for, then whatever I attain should also be auspicious. This much can be argued logically. Now let us move on. Now there are some schools in Buddhism. There are, as I said, there are lots of schools in Buddhism. I have read the names of 60 schools in Buddhism. Swami Vedanta Deshika lists about 44 schools in Buddhism, and he has done it about 7 centuries ago. Uh, but but Tibetan Buddhists, as well as the traditional Vedic Sanatanis, we have the habit of studying 4 schools of Buddhism: Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Yogachara, and Madhyamika. They say that there was Buddha. Buddha had 4 disciples. Which Buddha? Was it the Siddhartha Gautama Buddha who was born 2000 years ago? According to us, we are referring to the older Buddha, the Buddha from the previous Kali Yuga. The Buddha from the previous Kali Yuga, he had 4 disciples. From those 4 disciples came that Buddha was Vishnu's avatara, as per our Puranas. And from him, 4 disciples of his, each one's followers started their own subsect of Buddhism. Therefore, we had Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Yogachara, and Madhyamika. Today, these fall under what? Hinayana, Mahayana, and so on. So, Vaibhashika, it does not assert reflexive awareness, but it asserts external phenomena. Meaning, it believes that the external phenomena that we see, the world that we see is real. Maybe our awareness alone is not really true. But if the world around us is real, how does the world function? Sautrantika says that our reflexive awareness is also true. The external phenomena are also true. Yogachara says that everything is an illusion. Knowledge alone is true. Let us first look at these 3 schools: Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, and Yogachara. They do something that is called Kshanikavada, Kshanikatva, they believe in. That is, they believe that although, like Vaibhashika and Sautrantika believe that the external phenomena, that is the external world or the universe that we see, they believe that it is real. But they believe that it has only an instantaneous existence. It exists, next second it ceases to exist. The second after that it exists again. As an example, I mean, it might sound a little weird or maybe a little complex, but as an example, think about a candle flame. Or maybe you light the traditional deepa. You have not lit wax candles. I don't know. But it is the same. You look at the fire, you look at the flame on top of it. What is the nature of this flame? You look at the fire, it would look like a single fire, correct? Suppose it is a candle that is lit. I would see a single fire that is continuously burning as the wax gets depleted. But in reality, at each instant of time, it is a different portion of the wax, that is basically the fuel, that is being consumed and converted into the fire. So the fire comes, but this fire, in the very next instant, it is replaced by the fire that is created by burning another portion of wax. And then there is another portion of wax, then another portion of wax. In this manner, there are infinite instances. But when we look at it, we see only a single flame. Is this example understood? This is very important, because if we don't understand what the schools are saying, we wouldn't understand the state of moksha as described by them. And because the question was asked, I have entered this topic.
Yes, so, I think it is clear.
So like a candle, we think the fire is one, but in reality, it is a combination of several instances, where in each instant it is actually a different fire. In the same way, the universe is also many different many different states of existence it has. It exists, then it ceases to exist, then it exists, then it ceases to exist, and so on. It keeps happening. We don't realize it. We think that everything is happening continuously and consistently, because that is how it appears. In this manner, they said, this is an example of Kshanikavada. Now, if you look at Yogachara, they said all of this is actually illusion. Only knowledge is real. Yogachara is also called Chittamatra. Chittamatra, because they believe in Chinmatra Brahma. Wait, Chinmatra Brahma, does it not look like Advaita? Yes, it does. It tries to establish Paramartha, what you call as Paramarthika Sthiti in Advaita. It believes in the same Paramarthika Sthiti. Yogachara believes in the same state of moksha, but it tries to establish it by logical reasoning. And it is not just about the definition of moksha, it is about the reality of the universe. Advaita, Adi Shankaracharya very firmly says. Even recently I heard Sringeri Shankaracharya saying the same thing. Obviously, if Adi Shankaracharya has said it, Sringeri Shankaracharya would repeat it, right? So you cannot establish Advaita by using logical reasoning. You cannot establish Advaita by using logical reasoning. It is something, it talks about the states of existence and experience. It talks about the entire world being mithya and so on. These are not things that mere logical reasoning can help us to understand and establish. For this reason, Adi Shankaracharya had also opposed the Yogachara school. He had also opposed them. He said, no, with logical reasoning, you cannot prove this part. You guys are lying. You guys say that you have actually realized the existence of such and such a state, but that is not really possible. So Adi Shankaracharya has also written in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya about this. But anyway, so Yogachara says that knowledge alone is reality, knowledge and perception. As a matter of fact, the supreme reality is the knowledge that everything other than knowledge is non-existent. Hence, Bhagavad Ramanuja calls the Yogacharas as Jnanamatra Astitva Vadinaha, meaning they believe in the Astitva, that is the existence of knowledge alone. Jnanamatra. So, Jnanamatra Astitva Vadinaha. These people are those who believe and those who say that knowledge alone exists, there is nothing else that exists. So that makes them a little different from Sautrantika and Vaibhashika. But yes, they also believe that the physical world that we see at the end of the day, it is something that is not going to be existing forever, right? I mean, if you literally call it as illusion, then it has to cease at some point of time. It has to end. The perception of the universe has to end at some point of time. So, moksha, as per Vaibhashika or Sautrantika, is where you get out of this external phenomena that is full of problems. Yogachara is where you get out of the unreal perception and enter the state of pure perception alone, where only knowledge exists, nothing else exists. Still okay. But there is one more school, Madhyamika. No, Madhyamika says, so what is Madhyamika? That also has to be seen. Madhyamika is the most ancient and the original Sarvashunyavada doctrine of Buddhism. What do we mean by Sarvashunyavada? We mean that it is a school that says everything is nothing. It also sounds similar to Advaita, right? How is it different? No, Advaita does not say that everything is nothing. There is a subtle difference between Yogachara and Madhyamika. What is this difference? This difference is very important. I must point it out here. A few years back, Jaggi Vasudeva, who is better known as Sadguru, he made a statement based on Nirvana Shatkam. He said, look, Adi Shankaracharya says, I am not this, I am not that, I am not this, I am not that. What does he say? After saying Neti Neti, he says, Shivoham, Shivoham. There, that Shiva, the word Shiva means nothingness. So I am nothingness. This is what Adi Shankaracharya has taught us. This is the teaching of Jaggi Vasudev. Now, is this really the teaching of Adi Shankaracharya? It is not. And if I am saying this, I am not saying it out of the blue. You may find it in Asia's official website as well. It is still there, the article, which is based on the words of Jaggi Vasudev himself. I may not have a YouTube link, but there is proof. We don't say things out of the blue. But is that what Adi Shankaracharya had really meant? Did he really mean that Shiva? Did he really mean that Shiva means nothingness? No. Shankaracharya meant that Shiva is Atma. Atma is Brahman. Other than the Atma, nothing exists. Other than Brahman, nothing exists. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Jagat is Mithya, but Brahman is Satya. Brahma Satyam. This is the school of Adi Shankaracharya. So, Sarvashunyavada is not the school of Adi Shankaracharya. We should be clear this much. But Madhyamika school, which believes in Sarvashunyavada, it says everything is an illusion. All the external phenomena, they are all illusions. What about the reflexive awareness? I'm getting perceptions of external phenomena. What about that? No, your perceptions are also all illusions. Okay, what about me? What about me? You are also an illusion. Is there something at all that is real? Is the Atma real? No, Atma is not real. Is knowledge real? No, knowledge is also not real. Then what is the supreme state of existence according to Madhyamika? Can you guess? Madhyamika does not even believe in existence. It believes that nothing exists. It believes that there is absolutely nothing in existence. So when there is nothing in existence, how would the state of supreme existence ever be? There was never an existence. There will never be an existence. Therefore, there is nothing at all. Yogacara says, yes, that knowledge would be there. Nothing more would be there other than knowledge. So you wouldn't be having new experiences. You wouldn't see the world. There is no space-time. Knowledge alone would be there. Bhagavad Ramanuja asks, how could you have knowledge if there is no person to get the knowledge, and if there is nothing to get knowledge from? For me to say, I know a pot, I should be there, the pot should be there, then the knowledge of pot can exist. But if there is neither the other pot nor myself, how can the knowledge alone exist? He asks. But anyway, so Yogacara, according to Yogacara, it is a state where knowledge alone exists. According to Madhyamika, it is nothing that exists. So the ultimate state is actually nothingness itself. According to Vaibhashika, whatever exists is actually real, but very, very temporary. According to Sautrantika, it exists, but is very, very temporary. So, based on these, the definition of moksha or nirvana, the word that they use, the same word gets different meanings in these different schools. Is this clear?
Yes, clear.
If we really start going through each and every school, we will see that there are more and more differences. Okay, so that is a very so we can't simply say let us choose one random school and follow. We will still get to the same destination. No, the destination itself is described as different. For example, we Vishishtadvaitha and also the Dvaitin, the people of Madhva Sampradaya, they believe that there is the external phenomena the external world, the Jagat, it is real, it is true. So we believe in a moksha which is described as Saguna by especially the Advaitin. Shankaracharya also talks about Saguna Moksha, but that is a different thing. We will cover that later. Now, we believe that it is possible to attain a supreme state of being where we have infinite bliss. Remember, the Christians also said something like that. The state of supreme definitive happiness, as the Roman Catholics believe, right? So that part that they believe in, that about supreme definitive happiness, that much we also accept. But whatever the Roman Catholics are saying as a state of supreme existence is very different from what we are saying. And what we are saying and Roman Catholics are saying is extremely different from what Madhyamika is saying. So, all of us may use different words in our respective languages for the supreme state of existence. But what we imply by the same words are absolutely different from each other. Therefore, it is not possible to say, I will get to the same goal by following this or by following that. Whether I follow Christianity or whether I follow Buddhism, I will attain the same goal. You cannot say it. Because Buddhism says this is your goal. It calls the goal as something else. Christianity says that is your goal. It calls the goal as something else. Islam says these two are not your goal. The goal is something else. It is a totally third goal. So, in this manner, the goal, which is some supreme state of existence, you call it heaven, you call it moksha, you call it nirvana, you call it whatever you like. But different schools of philosophy explain the state of existence, or as we saw in the case of Madhyamika, it says existence itself is unreal. So it is explained in very different ways by different schools. And for that reason, it is not correct for us to say all paths will lead to the same destination. That is never truth, because those very paths, right? If you believe in that path, you should believe in the supreme state of existence as per that path. Otherwise, you would be a hypocrite, whether or not the path is correct. If you are a true believer of the path, you should believe in the description of the final supreme state of existence as described by that path. And when these descriptions themselves are differing, then it is to be understood that the states of existence, right, the destination, the ultimate destination that a person who follows pure Christianity would reach, would be different from the ultimate destination that a person who follows pure Islam would reach, which would be different from the destination that a person who follows pure Buddhism would reach. The destination would all be different, even under the assumption that Christianity is valid, Islam is valid, and Buddhism is valid. Now, if you say, no, I don't believe that all of these are valid, I think only one of these is valid and others are all wrong, then naturally everybody who is wrong is not going to attain that supreme state which is believed by them. Only the correct faith is going to reach. So no matter how we see, whether we think that one school is correct and all other schools are wrong, or whether we believe that all the schools are correct, doesn't matter. No matter how we believe, it will not be possible to logically establish that all of them will attain the same state of existence. Why? Because there would be proof by contradiction. That needs to be understood. So, by using what is called as proof by contradiction, it is possible for us to establish, it is very easily possible for us to logically establish that the state of existence of all beings is not going to be the same if each person is going to follow a different path, a different school of thought. Is this clear?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. We will look at a little more schools in the next class, and then we will come back. Maybe this is the right time to see, because because I mentioned that the Alvar explored. He studied various schools, and he tried following some of them. He explored various schools. He studied one school after another. So maybe we are also doing that, but today, while being a little more updated, in his days there was no Abrahamic faith in existence. Today we are seeing them also a bit. That is all. But of course, we are not studying them in depth. That is not the purpose of this class. This class is meant for Vishishtadvaitha. But because the concept of moksha was asked, how do other faiths perceive the state of moksha that was asked? For that reason, we started discussing this. In the next class as well, we will discuss a little more about this. We will see a few more schools, but we will focus on Indian schools this time. Like I said, Sankhya, Vaisheshika, and so on. And we will see how they define moksha. And then we will return to our Alvar story. Okay?
Thank you so much for a very, very comprehensive overview. I have one suggestion at the right time you can consider. We talked with the overview, of course, we got glimpses, I understand, but it was very useful about the ultimate destination, how it varies. At some point of time, this life, how it should be lived, I think there is largely an agreement between all faiths, I think. So, righteousness, dharma, or whatever. So, maybe sometime you can cover that.
Yes, we will cover that in the next class. But we should,
no problem. Whenever convenient, no hurry.
We should
but,
cover
today's was very brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay. We should compulsorily cover that. I think for Christianity and Islam, it was made clear, right? At the end of the day, if you live life without believing in Jesus Christ, you will not get heaven as per
No,
Christianity.
leave alone the belief aspect. Way of living, I mean, one should do charity, one should do prayer, one should do worship, one should go to church. What are the commonalities, I mean?
Okay.
Go on a kshetra, visit holy places.
We will look at that in the next class.
That's right.
We will definitely.
Okay.
Any other question or suggestion? Okay, there seems to be no other question or suggestion. So let me conclude the class. Shri विद्यावाप्य विबुधोत्तमतां दधानं कुर्वय सदा हृदि गुरुं करुणाकराख्यं लक्ष्मीनाथ समारम्भां नाथयामन मध्यमां सदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरु परम्परां. Thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you everybody. We shall meet tomorrow at 6 o'clock.